I usually introduce it by welcoming my audience into the cinema as if it were a pirate ship. But it seems more appropriate here in Kerala to welcome you into this Tagore cinema as if it were a temple. After all, a cinema and a temple share many qualities. They are both dark spaces where we receive messages from the light. They both invite us inward, yet we commune with our neighbors without speaking. For some, the message we receive is a revelation. And for others, say in a horror film, it might be a curse. Either way, I want to say that the people of Kerala are some of the most colorful, kind, and generous people I have met. They have built this incredible festival, uniting education, art, and politics. But more than that, they have made it economically accessible to their public. This is how a society grows and prospers. So it is my great honor to welcome you esteemed guests and festival organizers to the Indian premiere of Underground Orange. It is a great honor to be here with you. Thank you so much. This is cumbia, cumbia that my friend and I made. With my friend who's Thai, who's in Thailand, singing the lyrics in English of a cumbia song, in Spanish of a cumbia song. And it says, buy me, cómprame. It's kind of a play on the fact that in English, it's always about buying something, you know? Test me out. I am sufficient. Come on. Check me out. This is also kind of funny. The distribution, duplication, and exhibition in the illegal of this film results in fines and other punishments under the law of the shell of the parrot. Anyway, it's kind of surreal. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so I can take questions, I can talk about the process. You know, writing and directing your own movie is, and your acting is a very complicated process. And I'm sure there's some people who might have questions about that, or any aspect of the film. I am very grateful to be here. So I know I don't want to waste time. There's a lot of people, I think, for another film. So do you want to, what would you like to do, sirs? Yeah, do you want to, okay. Is there any questions that any audience member has? We can start with that. I can talk about something else if nobody has questions. There's a question at the top.
You please talk about the movie, please. Don't wait for that.
Yeah, I mean, the film was shot in 2022. We recently had our theatrical distribution in 2024, about 2 months ago in Argentina. It's a very difficult time in Argentina. There's censorship of queer content and dictatorship content, and the film has both of those. So it's a difficult time to, it's a very important time to create a movie like this, to have people remember of the things that happened only 50 years ago, and there's yet, censorship. So right now in Argentina, they are looking at selling resources, selling off, privatizing, and using dollars, right? Using dollars, dollarizing the country, meaning you go and buy food and you pay in US dollars. And they're proposing to do that to pay off the debts that were accrued in the 70s from the state terrorism that the United States enforced Argentina to the puppet governments of Videla. So this is very perverted, right? It's a perverse type of, why would you sell your resources to pay a debt that actually the United States should be paying Argentina, plus the interest rates, not the people paying the United States, right? And that's how domination works. You all know in British and the French and the Portuguese and the Mongols and how many years of empire and domination has India received in the past 800 years and longer. So what do you do if you're a culture that is a socialist culture that proposes public education, private public hospitals, right? Subsidized transportations, right? Like subsidized film festivals like this. How do you organize an event if you have to charge $25 to go to the festival, right? That's how the United States works, right? You have the average person in the United States has $100,000 of debt, like on average, right? That's the average debt of an American. I come from there. And so is that the proposal that we should embrace? That everybody should be 25 years old and have a debt of $100,000? Do you want to go to Stanford? Do you want to go to Harvard? Do you want to take a debt of $300,000 by the time you're 25 to study? Is that something you want to do? Well, that's the way that the United States proposes education, right? And the way that the United States proposes hospitals is all private, it's very expensive, and you have to have a job in order to afford it. You have to have a high-paying job to afford it. And that's why there's so much homeless in the United States. I come from an area next to San Francisco. There's a lot of Indians that live in the Silicon Valley in San Francisco. I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's a high population of Indians, maybe over 5%. And there's so much homeless there on the streets, I mean, you can see the tents when you walk around in San Francisco. People are addicted to fentanyl now. Fentanyl is a drug that makes you look like zombies. You're just kind of hunched over like this, and you don't eat, and you're very thin. And it's a disgraceful place, actually, and it's my hometown, And so it's very painful for me to go back there. But this is the proposal of U.S. society, politics to some degree, and I am very opposed of it. And that's why I don't live there. I don't live in the United States. I live in Argentina. And now the government is trying to, emulate the United States in many ways that I am against. And this movie is a reflection of that to some degree. And Perón, the Argentine political figure of 60 years ago, created a lot of working class, opportunities to study and to get health care. And now the right wing in Argentina is threatening that, is jeopardizing all of the work. These are important things, like having a film festival where you can have dialogue and create a society where we all want to live in, not just the billionaires, And, I've seen a lot of the world now. I just came from Italy and Spain and UK and Argentina and San Francisco. And so I want to say that this is a unique thing that you have here, and don't lose it, please, because the world should emulate you. The world should look at Kerala and say, how are they doing this? Because you bring together, the education system, the University of Kerala, to have conferences during the time of the festival for filmmakers and artists to meet with teachers and to bridge gaps, to bridge gaps of understanding, and that's how you improve, you enrich a culture. And that's what you're doing. And so I want to thank you and honor you for doing that. It's very special. Thank you. Yeah. So if there's anybody that has any questions, I don't want to talk all day, although I could, about the movie. Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask?
Sure.
What was the toughest part while making this film, and how were you able to manage the expenses without reducing the quality?
Okay, there's so many obstacles to making a film. There's obstacles every day, and you have to be able to be flexible. And I'm not kidding, but I do a lot of yoga. And one of my friends is a teacher in Berlin, and he made this comment to me I'll never forget about yoga, because yoga, you sit on a mat, right? And I do hatha yoga at my house. I don't go to a place. I breathe, and I'm in my house, and I'm doing specific exercises that teach me flexibility unconsciously, right? And so when I'm put in a situation where I have to think about how to reframe a shot because it's raining and it wasn't raining yesterday and we need the cover of that angle, I'm able to think quickly. You have to be flexible. So every single day there were obstacles. I would say that overall, to touch on a point of directing and acting simultaneously, one of the hardest things is that when you're running behind the camera and in front of the camera, you don't have a lot of time to direct the other actors. So they get bored, they get tired, they want you to have a dialogue with them, right? Am I doing this okay? Protect my work. They want the director to protect their work because they're actors and they need validations. They need you to say, you're doing a great job. This time, put it over on that side instead of this side. Give some diverse directions. Change it up because they get bored, right? And so this was the hardest thing, I think, for me, was that I was not able to generate a dynamic acting environment because I was always moving behind the camera and reviewing the scenes that we shot. And so also, since there were 5 actors, there's so many people to think about, right? In almost every scene, 70% of the movie. So how do you give dynamic directing to 5 different actors while you're one of them, So this was a difficult. And then in terms of raising money for the film, it's very complicated. We received money from the Argentine government, and in the United States, it works through tax write-offs. That's how the U.S. system works. If it's Amazon, if it's Apple, if it's Warner Brothers, they make small independent movies through tax write-offs. So they make a bunch of money, like Amazon will make money selling electronics and spend the money instead of paying to the government. They just make 20 independent films. So that's the model in the United States, and so you have to know wealthy people. That's pretty much it. You have to know wealthy people who want to write off on their taxes, finance. Instead of pay to the government, you can pay as a non-for-profit. You can pay to a film. So you have to producers contact these people and say, hey, can you give us your money? This is what our theme is about. Are you interested in Argentina? Are you interested in social justice? Do you like Henry Kissinger? Do you want to see him dead in a movie? Stuff like that.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
You said that the Argentine government has given you some money.
Correct.
And from US also you got some money.
Right.
And using that money you are criticizing both governments. Was there any problem?
Yes.
From the governments? I'm trying to understand the censorship.
Yeah. No, I've had no problems so far.
So it's good. It's not like in India then.
Yeah, interesting, right? You have a degree of freedom, and that's a good point. We are not as censored, I think. In Argentina, it's not a culture of censorship by any means, But there's an article that came out where they said that the government was going to censor queer and dictatorship content. And so that is something that is concerning, obviously, when you're going to distribute your movie that year. But the governments themselves, we have not received any issues. Any questions? Yes.
First of all, I congratulate you for this beautiful movie.
Thank you.
It's about the shorts which I observed in the film. The movie started with a static shot, and you used so much of static shots in the movie rather than other shots. So, is there a particular reason why you chose static shots?
Yes, it's a good question, and the opening of the film was shot in a more static way. I think that represents the character's U.S. kind of rigidity as a person, kind of more of a robotic person. And as the film goes along, it becomes more and more fluid. The film is a genre fluid movie. It has gender fluidity as well. And so, how would you approach this concept from a formal place? Formally, you might think about how to make that transformation. The character goes from being ignorant to realizing that what his country has done to another country, and then he wants to deny it, and then he decides to accept it, and then he wants to do something about it, right? He puts a microphone in the embassy, and they're talking about kidnapping the ambassador. And so his arc is a content-based arc, and the formal-based arc in the film is, like you said, the way you're thinking about the shots, for those who don't know about directing. And the formal, there's the last, like one of the 3 or 4 last shots is a they call plano secuencia in Spanish. It's a one shot. It's a 3.5 minute one shot, one take. You know, they call it Spielberg oneer in the United States. Spielberg used to do that a lot. It's 3.5 minutes without cutting. It's a very difficult shot, but like you say, it's a very fluid shot, right? It's the most fluid shot in the film where they're dancing, and then all of a sudden he's dancing with someone else, and he's walking around. He sees a parrot on the ground, on a bed. You know, I mean, like we had to take 6 times because the parrot was always flying around. You know, cut the parrot. Okay. You know, or there's a shadow on the wall because of the boom mic. You know, these are things you never see in a movie, but man, they stress you out. So yeah, is there any more questions?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Hey.
Great movie.
Thank you.
Good watch. It actually engaged me a lot. And I just wanted your thought on how did you choose the color palette? Because the color palette is very bright and very popping colors. When you are discussing a very dark and grey topic, how did you come up with the choice of colors?
Yeah, this is a good question. I watched a lot of references before. I really liked a Godard film called Pierre le Fou, and there's a reference to the film Pierre le Fou in the dance sequence. And the film has got very bright colors. Godard's period in the 67, 68. There's another film called Les Chinois, the Chinese girl, I think it's called. It's also extremely colorful, and it's about a militant group of Marxists. It's a fascinating movie. And then there's a couple other references like Napoleon Dynamite. You ever see this film? Yeah, it's a wonderful film. I highly recommend it. It was shot on a pretty low budget of about $600,000 or something like that, and in the United States. And I think so. In terms of the references, there's that, and there's Almodovar, of course, Pedro Almodovar. But how it relates to Argentina and the content, in my way, like you said, to have some dialogue with the gray, dark. Same with the humor in the film. How do you approach the subject matter in a respectful way, but also, it's heavy. So how do you talk about it, especially being a foreigner, not wanting to offend anybody? And so using colors, but to me, Argentina is a very vibrant place. It's a vibrant community. It is a beautiful country, and I also think that the color represents that. Yeah. Any other question?
First of all, thank you for the movie, sir. I am very much attracted to the way you have portrayed the politics by having a perfect blend of communication between the characters. And my question comes from the end part of the movie, where one character asks to the protagonist that you can't escape from the reality, whether you are portraying an unrealistic climax for the movie.
Yes, thank you. It's a great question. There's a constant play of what is real and what is fiction in the film, and there's a point at the beginning where the character hits his head on the ground. So that could justify the possibility that the whole film is a dream sequence to some degree. And this idea of surrealism is a fascinating concept. Surrealism can be defined as the point of connection between different realms of existence. And that point of connection, in this sense, is what is real and what is fictional. And I think that you can't escape from reality. You know, actors, right? When are actors not acting? Have you ever gone out with an actor before? Do you have friends who are actors? You know, it's a wonderful profession, and yet it's the idea of Shakespeare, right? He said that the whole world is your stage. When there's a book called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, and it's how we are acting, we are presenting something of somebody's identity, maybe without us knowing it, but we're always acting, right? And so in the film, this scene is about this guy who is kind of chasing after the group, saying, you know, this is not, you can't escape from reality. He also said that they think life is fictional inside. He made this comment, you know, they think life is just fictional. And in the film, that's the point. It's like, where is it that in the high level politics, where is it that, you know, they can tell us anything, and how do we know what's going on? You know, I mean, we are just recipients. If you try to find the U.S. government, you know, they declassify documents 50 or 100 years after an event. And so they just tell you what they, like, that's what happened with the Vietnam War, you know, with the Indonesian War, you know, several millions of people are killed. And even inside of the US government, they are fighting about what to share to the public, you know. And so to some degree, we don't really know what's going on. The United States has a lot of power, and what they want to tell us, we kind of have to go along with. So there is a sense of levity that I find in presenting the film in this way. So thank you for that question. Any other questions? Yes. Sorry, the mic is off.
Hi. In your film, you are saying that speaking a different language is like acting. I just want to make clear that you intended to say that on a philosophical sense or political sense. Because in India, there are more than 75 languages used here. And we also have a constitutional language of like 18 or 20 something. We are also having some cultural and political conflict based on the language usage and all. Also, there are some movements based on whether we are trying to dissect the countries into 3 or more different parts. So I really love to know about that.
Yeah, I know. I read that India has 21 official languages, just officially. And I think for the character says that for him, speaking another language is like acting. And I think when you're learning another language as an adult, I don't know if you learned English as a child or as an adult, but when you learn it as an adult, you are just memorizing words, just like in a play, right? You are memorizing words, and that's when I learned Spanish as an adult. I'm not a native speaker, and so to me it was like memorizing lines of a play, you know, and you memorize it, and that's how you learn essentially. And then you kind of start to get used to the sound of your voice in another language as an adult, right? As a 25-year-old person or whatever, and that is very uncomfortable, because, you know, you're used to hearing, look, listen, this is who I am, this is what I sound. Pero si empiezo a hablar así, con un acento muy heavy, grave, y bueno, nadie me puede entender, it's a different sound of voice, so how do you become accustomed to that? you know? And to me, that was, and then there's also the parrot, right? The parrot in the film. And to me, acting is like parroting. There's even a word in English for that, right? We parrot words, like how a parrot learns to speak English, right? And to me, there's a sense of imitating your surroundings, not just with the words, but with your gestures. In Argentina, they use this a lot, you know? And I am like, well, what does that mean, you know? And it's like, well, you start to get used to the meaning. You don't even have to speak. You could just say like this, and they know what you're saying, you know? And maybe that they have expressions like that in India as well, or maybe between, let's say, the Tamil people and the people from Kerala, they won't understand each other. But between the Kerala and Kerala, they will. So this is the thing where, you know, you in the character, but I think also in reality, language is very political. It's always political, but it's also very social, and it's also very personal. You know, you choose what words you want to use or not. So, yeah. Is there any more question?
Hello? Yeah. Okay, the movie, obviously it's pretty good. I love the movie, the colors, everything. It was fucking good. You said you moved from US because you resent how they live and what they did to Argentina, you know. And then you said you kind of resent Argentina now because they're trying to emulate the US. And in the movie, they use the whole play thing to kind of, you know, underroot the main routes from the embassy. And they find out that the Argentinian state is a part of the whole thing as well. So they can't really do anything about it, but they choose to kind of still stay on a rebellious mode. So they're not really, you know, the rebel part is not really working out because there's no one villain out there to, you know, just push. You can't do that. So I'm trying to find your point of view to live like a modern day pirate. How would you rebel against something when the thing are things, you know?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's something I think about a lot. I think that the pirates are fascinating in many ways. It's like they have there's an anarchist element. There's an idea of not pertaining to one nation. And they also were very skeptical of banks, right? They buried their treasures, you know. And that's like on some unconscious level, like they're not using banks. Well, you know, 300 years ago there were banks. There were banks for thousands of years, you know, and the pirates are not using banks. And apparently they were very open people because they're traveling a lot, so they see different cultures, and they were apparently more accepting of they had a license for men to marry each other. It's called matrilodge. And it existed 300 years ago in order for, if one man dies, because imagine a ship of men, then they can carry on, they can pass on their inheritance to another man if they have this contract, a marriage contract. So to me, what does it mean to be a pirate today? Well, you know, the funny thing is, it's like, you know, these are people who are robbing banks, right? And they are also getting robbed. So they're also, you know, the pirate of the United States is a pirate, obviously. Henry Kissinger was a pirate. You could say that the Argentine government is also a pirate of some sort, you know. No matter what, I believe that when you arrive at a political level, you know, at that level, the officials were somehow, when you're obedient, you're supporting. And so if it's an Argentine head official like Videla in the 1970s, you know, I think that he's also guilty, right, of supervising 30,000 deaths, you know. And so, to me, politics in itself has a degree of corruption that it's very hard for me to follow one political line or one political person, because I just find that it all becomes just an excuse of rhetoric. It's a false sort of facade of power. You know, and I just came from Italy, actually, and in Italy, you know, I was fascinated by the mafia, right? Like, you know, when you go to Sicily, and you do research about the mafia, it's a very interesting organization that had so much power, and it's very simple when you're in a mafia because you don't have to follow the rules, right? Well, it says the law says you can't kill, well, the mafia says you can, so they're above the law essentially, because they just say, well, if you say I can't kill, I'll just kill you, so then you're done, you know. So how do you deal with that as a human? Because India is a very human place. It has a great humanity. And what do we do when we get invaded by other countries, right? And how do you deal with these things? Well, in my instance, I think you have to live somewhere, and there is no place which is just an anarchy country that I have found yet. And the country that I have appreciated the most has been Argentina because of their socialist principles and because of their generosity, their public hospitals, their public universities, and also because they're militant people. I've heard that Kerala also has a history of militancy, of activism, of political protest. You know, I know about Sri Aurobindo, and of course Gandhi. And I would like to learn more about the Kerala political movements of the left. But these are, the ultra-leftist and anarchist sort of culture where I think self-realization like Paramahansa Yogananda and self-government, there are a lot of things in common. I also am thinking that Hinduism is a very interesting religion, that there might be a correlation between Hinduism and Marxism that I'm curious about, and non-violence. But yeah, thank you for your question. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yeah. One here and one there. Do you want to just stand up and ask, and I'll repeat it? Sorry, what?
I would like to know whether this film had a theatrical release in Argentina.
Yes.
And if so, what was the response from the people? And did they try to
Yes.
get your...
I got it. I'll repeat it. Has the film had a theatrical release in Argentina, and what was the response of the people? Well, the film has had a theatrical release in Argentina, which was on October 10th, and the film screened commercially as well as in National Cinema. They have a national theater, which is a wonderful place where you can go and watch a movie for $1.50. In Argentina, which is kind of similar to the way that the festival organizes here. And, when the film is at that price, it's very popular, actually. We were there for 3 weeks, and there were still 60, we're selling a lot of tickets. There's politics involved, and so, you can only be in the theater for a certain amount of time because the politics get involved. Like, they want to get you out. It's not about making money, it's just about, the producer's contacts with, and if Netflix has a contact with this the national theater, basically Netflix and Amazon and Apple choose wherever they want to show, and then all of the national films have to kind of come in afterwards and see what slots are open. Unless you're a very famous Argentine director or producer, then you can kind of pull. Find that time. So this is my first film, and it was difficult, but we had 3 weeks in the public theaters and 1 week in the commercial theaters, and I think it was great. We got great reviews. If you look under Letterboxd or under Rotten Tomato, the 2 Argentine Rotten Tomato reviews are really wonderful. Yeah, very, very cool. Any more questions? Yeah.
Hi sir. In this film, starting you show the graveyard and you show the symbolic shot of California flag, one thing. And another shot is, the poster is there, Argentina 4, and that TV is there on black cat. And the quotation like, how long you are watching Basha, this kind of symbolic shots did you place it in the movie? So what kind of...
The California flag in the graveyard is because the pirate came to California and conquered California, and so the character kind of has taken sand and made a little kind of monument to honor this dead pirate. This happened in 1818 in Argentina, in California. It's the only pirate in the history of the West Coast. And it actually existed. You know, our fantasy of what a pirate was 200 years ago, well, that also existed in California. These two boats arrived and they conquered California when it was under the rule of the Spanish. And so that scene in the film has to do with the character paying a homage to Hipólito Bouchard, who was the pirate that conquered California. Now, the other question or your other comment, I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's a poster.
What?
You're talking with your friends in that film. The poster is placed in backside.
The poster?
It's Argentina 4.
Yes. Okay. This is a great point because there's a few different things. There's the President Ford, Gerald Ford, who was president during the Argentine dictatorship, and then there was the Ford Motor Company. The Ford Motor Company is a U.S. car company, of course, that was actually a clandestine detention center where they tortured people, communists and militants. In the 1970s, Ford factory was used as a detention center to torture left-wing people. I mean, it's insane to me. It's totally insane, and it still exists. And it's the first factory in South America by the Ford company. So, you know, it's a 100-year-old company, right? When was it, like 110 years or something? You know, and it's an old company, and they have a factory there, and you can go to it. And when you go to the Ford factory, there's a sign that says, you know, we honor the disappeared people because of what happened in the factory in the 1970s. You know, I mean, it's insane to me. So I was putting these references in the film as a subtext, and I was hoping people like yourself, beautiful people like yourself, would recognize it. Because there's a lot of work to think of all this subtext, you know. There's so much subtext in the film, and in every scene there's something else going on than what you see. And I think the subtext is the rich intellectual text where we can discover unique interpretations that are not, you know, it's obvious if somebody's speaking the dialogue, but if you have to kind of guess, it's a metaphor, and it's the metaphor which is what makes us more personal. You know, our personal experience with this film is conveyed through metaphor, maybe more than just through direct dialogue.
Any more questions? We have to wind up because the time is exceeding.
Yeah. There's one more right there, one lady up there, and then this will be our last question.
Yeah. Yes.
Hello sir, the film was really good, but why did you choose the film's name to be Underground Orange? Does it like symbolize anything?
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm so glad you asked, besides my shirt, of course, right? The film, the title, I was reading a lot of books during the writing of this film. One of the books is called M19. It's a book you all might be interested in because it's about a group of militants that existed in the 70s and 80s in the United States, and they planted a bomb in the Capitol building, but nobody was hurt. And they were all women. It's the only group of female militants in the United States that exists. And they dyed their hair a color in order to escape from the public sight. They dyed their hair a color called Underground Orange. This is the name of the hair dye in the 1970s. It's very interesting. And so the title of the film, I first read this and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. The book is M19, which is the date of Malcolm X's birthday, May 19th. So that's why it's called M19. It's a very interesting connection. My birthday is also May 19th. So I had this kind of thing where I felt like, wow. And so in Argentina, the color orange, just in India, I read about it a little bit about the history of the color, but on the flag. But in Argentina, orange represents the separation of church and the state in political demonstrations. So when you go and you're wearing orange, because Argentina is a Catholic country, and if you take public transportation, you see the Virgin Mary on the windows, let's say. And when you go to public places, you see Jesus and so forth. This happens in many Latin American countries. So it's a movement to separate the church and the state from political ties. So those are reasons. Also, you could say, the Stanley Kubrick film Clockwork Orange. There's an element of that in it. Orange is a sexy color, fiery, political, and it's also on the flag of India. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think we can wind up this session. Thank you very much.
If you have Letterboxd or IMDb and wanted to give us a review of the film, we would be very appreciative. It helps us with distribution. So thank you so much for coming, and thank you for sharing your heart and your mind with me tonight. Thank you.